Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Lizard Brains podcast. I'm your host, DJ Allison Drini, joined by my co-host, Tom McGorman. Tom, how are we?
I'm good. We're extra good because we have a special guest with us today.
We do have a special guest, Randy Pobst. How are you doing?
Happy to be here. I'm not great. I got a cold.
That's
My
fine.
voice is even weirder than usual. May hear some sniffles, a cough, but I'm here.
We're happy about it. So thank you for joining us. We appreciate it. So, Randy, you do anything fun this weekend?
Oh, well, yeah. I was at CODA doing a Chin Track Days event, coaching one of my best buddies, Nate Amaral, who has spent the last 3 years building my Trans Am project, my 1977 Trans Am. Kind of a payback and just a good time at the racetrack. What did you do?
Oh, what did I do? I went to an autocross event on Sunday with my dad, which was good time. Just because my dad doesn't really autocross, but he got a new Civic Type R and he was all like gung ho about it. And I did not put a cone mark on the car, so like we're good. My dad would actually kill me if I marked the car with the cone. I did hit a cone, but it was with the rear tire, so that's acceptable, right? So I think if you hit,
they don't lift them like the old days. You could have gone right over that thing.
Yeah.
Just carrying it.
I think if you hit the cone with the rear tire in a front wheel drive car, I think you're doing okay. So it was surprisingly good. It like drove surprisingly well, being 100% stock. Like literally the alignment that it came out of the factory with. I could get some rotation on it at second gear speeds. It would have been nice if it had like a rear sway bar or something like that. But it was good time, and they're really nice cars, like really nice cars. I was kind of surprised how nice it was on the inside.
Yeah, high quality, right?
Yeah.
But they don't rotate enough. They're just resolutely planted in the back, and I guess there's a way to fix that.
Yeah, you put
But the
a
stock ones, I've only driven pretty stock.
right.
And gosh, you cannot get that tail out, and at least not easily.
I've driven one with a rear sway bar that's I think it's like 3 times stiffer than stock, and then that you can actually twist around cones. Like in a way, it's way more playful than you actually think it would be for like a street class car. But completely stock, yeah, you're kind of just driving the front tires around. But even then, it was fun just because I get to autocross with my dad. Don't get to do that a lot. And he came out and he had a good time, so that means I had a good time. What's up, Tom?
Definitely.
Wait, real quick. So that made me think of a question. You said your dad would kill you if you put a cone mark on the car.
Yeah.
Randy, when did it ever click when you started working like ride and drive jobs or like even schools that you weren't supposed to hit cones because they might damage the car? Because when I started working those jobs and they said don't hit cones, they could damage the car, it was like a light bulb for my little autocrosser brain, like, oh, I guess an autocross
I'm
cone
not supposed to
hurt a
hit
car.
them?
Yeah, I thought I could just hit them.
Well, I started that business in the late 80s, and nobody was talking about that. They were just go.
Let's go.
Nobody cared.
What?
And
Have you ever damaged a
so
car
that
with the
came out
cone?
much later.
Have you ever damaged a car with the cone, Randy?
Probably underneath,
Oh, underneath,
right? They get
where
under
you
there
can't see. Where you can't see. What about you, Tom? Have you damaged the car with the cone? I have. I've dented a door.
Yeah, because I've never dented a car, but I worked the launch event for the ND when it came out in 2015, and we were taking it city to city to let people drive them. And that's when we discovered that those side rocker panels fall off if you like look at them wrong. So we were flinging the runner under the door. We were flinging them left and right off those cars. These people are like,
the way you remove
these
it,
things are so cheap.
the way you remove it is you lift it up and push it back, and apparently a cone wedged underneath it literally does the same thing. So it was just like it was removing it like a set of technician hands would remove it if it needed to get to something. So, but the problem is that it would remove it at 60 miles an hour, so it would just get yeeted. So, I went through a finish sideways, and it was like 36 degrees, and I hit a cone at like 60 with the door, and it dented the door.
Of what car?
Yeah, it was an NB Miata.
Jeez.
Yeah.
I like finishing sideways though. That's
It's
dramatic.
fun when you do it and don't hit stuff.
And don't hit a cone. That would have been the magic.
Yeah. And then somehow spin it back around and face the correct way and then be like, "Oh, I did it on purpose."
Meant to do it.
Yeah.
I got a story for you about that you young punks won't know about.
Okay.
There was a guy, I think it was one of the Unsers, doing the Pikes Peak Hill Climb, the old IndyCar Unser racers.
Yeah.
Still running now,
Yeah.
like a great granddaughter Lonnie. But like in the old times, maybe in the 50s, this guy is so cool. He spun the car and crossed the finish line backwards on purpose at Pikes Peak.
At
And he
Pikes
won.
Peak? Wait, did he okay, hold
And he
on.
won.
Randy,
I
maybe
forget which Unser it was. He was in some sort of, like Juan Manuel Fangio looking Maserati or something, open wheels, cigar shaped body thing.
how do
Oh,
you
we're
know
talking a while ago.
Yeah, how do you know it was on
Oh,
purpose
yeah.
though? How do you know it was on
Okay.
purpose? Because he could have just said it was on purpose, like we just theorized.
Well, that's true. That's the legend. And there's
Yeah,
a
okay.
picture of him looking back over his shoulder as he drives across the finish line. That is unbelievable.
That is
That's
fun.
pretty epic.
So that's back when it was like dirt and stuff too, right?
Oh, yeah, it was dirt. Yeah, that's when it was
Yeah.
real. I did it once in the dirt in 1995.
It was part of the Firehawk challenge, wasn't it then?
Bridgestone Supercar Series.
That's the one. What did
Yeah,
you do it in?
imagine
An
that. It's a
RX-7?
road race series. And I'm all signed up. TC Klein has put me in his incredible BMW M5 race car. It's like a big touring car. It's fabulous. David Donahue had just won the championship the last year in the same car. So I'm in this BMW and I'm excited about the season and I get the schedule. And I'm like, oh, okay, here we go. Mid Ohio, Watkins Glen, Sonoma, Pikes Peak, Road Atlanta, Sebring. What?
Pikes
What?
Peak.
What? Wait a minute. Pikes Peak International Raceway, right? That little track there? No. Yeah,
That's
can you
actually really
imagine?
cool.
We're road racers.
I'm
We're
imagining
not,
if like
these aren't hill climb cars.
Yeah,
It was dirt.
I'm imagining if IMSA did something like that, like now, like go to
Yeah,
Pikes Peak as like a not as Pike Peak's hill climb, but like as its own separate event. That'd be pretty legit, wouldn't it?
it'd be great. But what if they
Yeah.
showed it up on the race schedule this year?
Oh, like
Mid
randomly.
Just
Ohio,
they
Road
didn't even.
America, Pikes Peak Hill Climb.
What about
Uh,
one lap?
Ooh,
You want to
say
add it to
what?
one lap?
let's add
We'll
it
add
to
it to
one
one
lap.
lap.
Oh, now that
Oh,
sounds
I'm
incredible.
totally in for that.
Wait, hold on. We
There
don't
you
have
go.
cages.
Great idea.
Nah, whatever. You know what?
Whatever.
That ND Miata with the soft top, it'll be fine. Just don't fling
I'm
it off the edge. You're good. You're good.
I'm sure
We'll
the
be
cars we run at one
fine.
lap are just as safe as the cars they were doing in the hill climb in the
Yeah,
90s
yeah.
with. It's
Oh, in
fine.
the 90s, yes, definitely.
In the 90s, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Cages were made out of PVC because it was lighter. Randy shook his
So
head
this whole-
yes.
He's,
That's been
it's like
done.
he's
Not
no
in my
comment,
car,
but
but it's been done. Muffler pipe is popular.
muffler pipe.
Oh,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
this
I've
whole-
heard that. And then you paint it black,
Lightweight
so it looks.
voltage.
Yeah, yep.
Right.
Yeah, that's why they drill them now to check the thickness.
Mhm.
Mm. So you just make that one
Um,
section thick, and then you're good.
I know.
Yeah,
You're such a racer, DJ. So guess what? Who drills it? You do.
Yeah,
Who builds the roll
exactly.
cage? You do.
Or somebody
Okay, so I put in this section right here.
that. Yep, that will work. I like it. And then you would
Okay, so-
you would use body filler to like fill in the weld so it doesn't look like it was like a one piece welded in, so it looks all seamless. Boom, we
You're
got it.
hired.
Yeah. Oh, geez. I don't know if I want to put somebody in this car.
No, you're gonna drive it.
Oh, well, it's a power to weight series, so it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense.
It's fine if you don't wreck it.
That is true.
Exactly.
I don't plan on wrecking any cars, so like we're good. Just like I don't plan on catching on fire, so like we're good.
That's a big one. You want
It
a
is.
tragic fire story? I don't know if your show wants tragedy to change the tune, but I'm going to tell you. I just
Okay.
met this guy. Yeah, I met this guy at Coda. I think he was from Mexico, but wherever he's from, he had done the you know what I'm saying? Carrera
Pan America.
Panamericana.
Yes.
several times. And that's a wild, what, like 3 or 4 day, 1,000 mile race on the streets in Mexico, and wild. And it's like one lap of America, except the racing is on the street.
Mhm.
Ooh.
And a couple people have been killed, and this is common. People get killed there a lot. One guy was running I think what he told me was it was a Studebaker, and it had suicide doors. They opened from the front. Not a big problem. He had a big crash, car caught fire. Emergency people got there.
Oh
They
no.
couldn't figure out how to open the doors. They couldn't
God.
get him out.
That's
Oh
not something
no.
you would think of until
That's-
it's too late.
Yeah, they opened at the front, not at the back.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I think that's super cool. I've always wanted a car that had
Yeah.
doors that open at the front, or even better, what's that? The Izetta, the bubble car.
With
The
the
whole
front.
front is
Yeah.
the door.
Oh yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah,
My
it
dad had
swings
one
the
of those model
steering column
cars.
out of the way and everything.
Thought it was the coolest thing.
Very.
Oh man. You get an RX-8. They got suicide doors on one side only.
Yeah, and you probably won't die
I
in a fire, so you're good.
I got a story about that. I just drove an RX-8. I don't know if you saw that. It was in a Lemons race, and it was
Uh-uh.
powered by a Tesla motor and battery.
In a Lemons race?
Really?
Wait, how did that work?
Yes. Well, Lemons offers some kind of ridiculous prize for winning a Lemons race in an electric car. It's either 10,000 or 100,000. It might be 100,000 because I've seen Jay Lamb's posts of his house with his Jaguar and a display room in front of his desk and his office and all this. He
So
did
he's got
really
the
well
money.
on $500 cars.
Yeah.
I got to admire that.
So wait,
But-
how did it work? Like-
Yeah, this guy called me out of the clear blue. I guess he'd seen that I've done the Pikes Peak Hill climb and some other things in electric cars.
Yeah, he's like, this is our
like
guy.
Usually Tesla.
Mhm.
Sorry, DJ.
Sorry, I'm just interjecting. I was like, this is our guy. He's driven a Tesla before. He's the man.
Yeah, I own one now.
Oh,
but
cool. Anyways,
I bought
continue.
it at exactly the wrong time. I mean, within days, a year ago, when they dropped all their prices,
Like by
10 grand.
$20K, yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And then the used cars, they all went down by 10 or 20K the same day. I literally bought it 3 or 4 days before that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, okay. Anyway, so
A $27,000 old Tesla was suddenly worth 17,
Womp.
just like that. But
s-
anyway,
yeah.
this guy calls me and he tells me, I've got an electric car. We're going to do a Lemons race. We'd like you to race with us, and we're going to win. And oh, cool. Have you ever raced it? No. Have you ever raced? No. Have you ever built a race car? No. I said, okay, let's go.
There's no way this can end poorly.
Yeah, the car was unbelievably better than you'd ever think with that. I mean, they were all engineers. They work at a business called Carbon Rivers, which has a great story because you know those giant windmills for generating electric power?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you've always heard that those what are they, 200-foot long windmill blades are piled up in some field in Nebraska because they're not recyclable. Well, this company figured out how to recycle them. That's what they do. They recycle windmill blades.
Okay.
But they took some of that carbon, whatever they get out of it, they call it graphene. It's supposed to be another step better than carbon, actually. And they made fender flares and some other things for the Mazda, but they put a Tesla battery in it in such a way they could be changed on the pit stop.
Oh.
You slide them in and out. And you got to plug in the cooling lines. They had quick releases. I mean, these guys, they're all engineers. But the leader is a wonderful guy. Oh, gosh, his name won't come to me. Wonderful guy. It's rare to find an engineer that is this much of an optimist. I find engineers to usually be pessimists.
Yeah.
Well, he was very optimistic. He's like, oh, yeah, we're going to win this race. I'm going, it's 14 hours.
Oh, maybe a
How quick
7 hour.
can you change the batteries? 2 minutes.
Oh,
Really? You think? And
that
he
might work.
also thought that Lemons would let him run during the church break because they had actually done that before, but it wasn't competitively. They just let an electric car do a couple laps because it's virtually silent.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, well, there was no church break. It
Oh.
was in New Orleans.
Oh.
Oh.
But the car was really not that bad
How
considering.
how long would you go on a single battery?
Well, here's another thing that came from optimism and a lack of experience. They hadn't driven this car around a lot, but he's like, "Oh yeah, we're going to go for an hour and a half." And I'm going, every electric car I've driven at full throttle uses up its batteries in about 8 to 12 minutes.
Yeah. That's what
Yeah.
I was wondering.
8 to 12 minutes, hour and a half. There's a pretty good gap there.
Yeah.
Well, sure enough, I go out first. Car's working, the brakes are working, the handling is kind of okay. But the battery, I don't go that hot because I've been around. I start going and I see that battery is coming down quick. So I
Mm.
drive very carefully and pretty slow, kind of like probably 2/3 of the way towards the back of the pack, right? Lemons, there's 100 cars. We were maybe running 60 or 70th pace. And I got it to about 35 minutes. And I was proud of it.
So you were doing like a lot
But
of lift and coast and stuff like that to try to get it. Like, did it have any kind of regen or anything like that? Or that, I
yes,
mean, it did have regen. Okay, that's really
it
impressive.
had regen.
Okay.
Yep.
Wow.
But it also, like most electric cars, all electric cars, when you go fast, they get hot.
Yep.
Mhm.
Like think of a short circuit when there's a lot of energy running through electrical wire. What's it do?
It
It
heats
gets
up. Yep.
hot. Yeah, it's not easy to cool that down. You got to be built for it. And so we had to deal with the temperatures in the rig too. But while inexperienced, this team was very smart and they were figuring out as we went. And they had their own homemade supercharger that they were using. They'd take the batteries out, put them on the supercharger, get ready for the next stop, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
And
So,
at one point, that thing went kapow and there was fire. I was
uh-oh.
in the paddock and like, guys, fire, fire, right there, fire. and, and they're like, oh, okay. And they patted it out with a rag or something. And they're like, oh, they plugged the defibrillator into the Nuchimapa and it caused it to overwhelm the Wappa Wappa. I'm like, okay, well, we're done. 10 minutes later, they had it fixed
That
and
sounded
running again.
exactly
God.
I'm
like
like,
Tom
what?
explaining a car.
It, it looked like they had just blown it up and we're done. No, fixed it. And
Huh.
before I let you guys talk, I'll tell you one more story from that race. It was really cool. Was when you did get on it, the car is fast. It's got a Tesla motor and a Tesla battery, Model 3.
Yep.
And so we got it charged up. And I had told the guy, I said, look, I think this thing will turn the fastest lap of the race. And in Lemons, they say $500. That's long gone. There's
Yeah, yeah.
some good, fast
There
cars
is.
running Lemons races, right? Have you guys,
Yep. Yep.
Tom? I'm sure you have.
I haven't done lemons in 15 years. I don't know why.
I did a lemons
It's
race
a
two
whole new
years
world
ago.
because you're too cool.
Yeah, I did a lemons
Jay,
race
have
2
you done
years ago,
Lemons?
but it was yeah, I was surprised like just how many like really fast cars were there.
Yeah, it's not as not what it was 15 years ago. That's for sure, Tom.
Yeah.
The racing spiral, although they're doing the best job of holding that down.
Sure.
Every series the cars come out and they just get faster. I do a lot of Lucky Dog series racing, and they just keep getting better and better and better. And it's really hard to hold that down
Yeah,
Yeah.
because racers want to go faster and make the car better.
I think
And
Totally.
anyway, I go out and I gun it for one lap. And it was fun, man. I come out of the pits and I'm looking at traffic. I'm like, okay, where's the gap? Because there's cars everywhere in a lemons race, from very slow to pretty fast.
Mhm.
I put in one lap, and the car like pretty much shuts down in the last two corners because it got hot. And I got fastest lap of the race by about a second over some kind of, what was it? Some kind of fast car, like a LS swapped Lexus or something. I
Yeah,
don't know.
Yeah.
$500.
3 minutes later, this was probably 2 or 3, 4 hours into the race. 3 minutes later, the LS swapped whatever it was beats me. Like, I guess he went 2 seconds faster, like that. I'm like, oh, well, it was fun while it lasted, right?
Yeah.
So we screw around, screw around. A couple other guys drive the car, and they had one circle track driver racing who wore a driver's suit, and on the back in foot high letters it said Wildcat. He was like a local circle track kind of driver,
Oh, nice.
but
Mhm.
this guy was cool. I mean, he raced a lot and he knew the deal. Anyway, I go back out later, and team owner's like, I want that pass the slap back. And I said, I think we can do that easily. And so
Especially if it doesn't shut
sets up the
down.
batteries, gets everything ready. I go out, I go 2 seconds faster and beat the other time, right?
Mhm.
3 minutes later, the LS swapped whatever it was, beats me.
They're just toying. They're just
Yeah.
I'm
doing
like,
this.
wait a minute.
We're like, how much
This
space?
guy can do this
Yeah,
anytime he
you're
wants.
thinking, how much
Yep.
pace is in this car? I, I,
Not that much.
the Lemons race I did, we ended up getting second, but for a lot of the race, we were winning it, but we were going against this car that could go like almost 4 hours on a single tank of gas. It was a
Oh,
Cadillac XLR, whatever like the Cadillac Corvette was. It had like a 30
yeah.
something gallon tank, and they were driving it like 15 seconds off pace, just like literally fuel mileaging it. Because if you drove it any faster than that, apparently like it oil starves and it would blow up or whatever. And the only reason it was in the class that we were in is because it's like a meme. If it survives the race, it deserves to win. So they just drove it around 15 seconds off pace, didn't load it up in the corners at all, just like straight awayed it everywhere. And that's the pace that it ran. And they did that for 3.5, 4 hour stints. And they did half the amount of pit stops we did. So like obviously they won, but I think I bounced off of Lemons from that because I'm like, this isn't like a true competition. This is like racing, and then there's like memes and jokes. That's like why I bounced off of it.
Hmm.
It's a party.
Exactly.
But
Yeah.
guess what? It's one of the truest competitions there are for the builders, because it's so wide open for you to be
That is true.
creative with whatever you come up with. You look at the rules and come up with an idea and don't piss off the judges.
That
In
is true.
fact, you may please the judges, and that makes it even better, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the
Yeah.
competition's ass kissing, right?
Well, that's part of it. It's the whole
That's part of it.
package,
It's the whole
just like
package.
life, DJ. And by the way, you look great tonight.
I, you know what? Thanks, Randy. I'm gonna edit it so you're sexy.
That's
Wait,
tough.
what?
That's hard to do, buddy.
Brutal.
Careful what
Brutal.
you ask for.
Uh, I
So
do.
oh, go ahead, Tom.
I haven't done lemons in 15 years. I haven't done Lucky Dog yet, but I do a lot of Champ Car and a lot of WRL. And there's this like Champ Car especially. That's freaking hard to win. And there's a team that's built a C4 Corvette that does a similar thing. They'll go out, they'll crack off the fastest lap that they need to, and then they'll dial it back to exactly the pace they can run. I think their fast lap at Watkins Glen a couple weeks ago was like a 209, and then they were running like 216s the rest of the race just to click, click,
Wow.
click, click, click. And
Yes.
if some and they would just run behind if they get a decent car to draft. I mean, it's the same sort of like rule book thing, and you're just like racing to survival almost. But we had a question. Do you know Randy, do you know Matt Busby from NCM? He's at Thunder Hill now. He was at NOLA before that. Track manager.
You know what? I've met everybody,
Yeah, yeah.
but do I know him? No.
Okay, so
I'm
he
sure
wanted
you've
to
met
know
him.
if your Volvo kink started with K-Pax or if that came later with the Lemons car.
Oh, it did start with K-Pax. I raced for K-Pax Racing from about 2007 to 2013,
Hmm.
somewhere in there. And we raced a Volvo S60 that was hugely modified, turbo all-wheel drive.
So hold on.
Got a hand up, DJ?
Yeah. So hold on. I just need to verify because you didn't deny the Volvo kink. So you're saying you have a Volvo kink?
Oh, hell yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. Continue.
Oh, hell yeah. Come on, any cool old school car guy likes Volvos
Oh,
because for many years there were these rear drive, solid, fun to drive sedans with good brakes and good enough handling. And so when I started getting interested in doing a little bit of like lemons, I don't think Champ Car even existed yet in 2012, did it? Or it's
Probably not.
Chump Car, maybe. I don't know. Anyway, when I wanted to do a little bit of that, this was a Volvo factory contract I had. So it had to be a Volvo. I can't show up with a Pontiac. And
Oh.
that's how it started. It was because of the relationship to K-Pax, really.
Have you had that red Volvo that long?
I have. That's right. That car started racing in something like 2013. So
Jeez.
that's 11 years being raced every year. Amazing.
Damn.
Man,
I had no idea.
amazing.
Okay, so that brings up a good point. So we at DJ and I on this podcast are not just admittedly, but proclaimedly not car guys. Although DJ flirts with it a lot. We lost you your camera, DJ. DJ claims he's not a car guy, but as you can tell, he's held conversation with you, and I have not. With the car technical stuff. Are you're a bona fide car guy,
Hold
self-proclaimed?
on, Tom. Can I
Oh,
interject
hell
here?
yeah, all the way. My mama says I was born with a toy car in my hands my whole life. You remind me of Andy Lawley, Tom. Another guy, great driver like you, not that into cars. He's got some
The car's the
pickup truck.
tool.
He was from New York City, so he has an excuse. Where are you
Mm,
from?
same place as you, Dayton, Ohio.
Hey, Tom, real
What?
quick.
Did I
Dayton,
know that?
Ohio. No, I don't. And I just realized it when I was like looking at your little Wikipedia page. I grew up in Mason. Mason.
I'm shocked.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where I was born. That's where all the popes were from, both
Huh?
sides of my family and their grandparents. Everybody. I lived there like 2 years, and then my Air Force dad got shipped all over the world. But
Got it.
Dayton, Ohio, I'll be damned. Who'd have
Sorry,
thought?
DJ. I cut you off, DJ.
You
Or
cut
was that
Carlton off? Sorry, Randy. I'm just so nervous. I'm a huge fan. Uh, I just wanted to pop in real quick and just say that I'm a car guy. My name is literally Carlton McCar Guy. So like, how could I be less of a car guy? So, anyways, Randy, big fan. I don't know where DJ went, but maybe he'll be back later. I don't want to hold you up too long. I'll catch you later.
Okay, I love that Lotus that you made.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That was a winner.
He didn't know what that was because he's
You got to really be a car guy to know what a Lotus Carlton is. One of my car buddies actually owns one in America, in the United
Oh, is that
States.
a car?
oh really?
Yeah, it
Did
was
it?
a car, and it was an amazing car, like in the 90s,
Yeah.
built by Lotus on some English sedan. But in the 90s, it had like, I don't remember, 400 horse or something that was crazy in the 90s.
It's a lot. Also, DJ just learned what a Carlton is.
Yeah,
A Lotus
I didn't know
Carlton.
what I'm sure Carlton McCar guy totally knew what a
Yeah.
Carlton Lotus was, but somebody just posted one in the chat. So
Do you want to explain that awkward moment you just put Randy through?
Yeah,
uh,
that voice sounded pretty AI to me. I don't know.
no, it's a voice filter.
So Carlton is an alter ego that lives on the podcast. He's the resident he's the resident car guy of the podcast because DJ and Tom are useless when it comes to cars.
So
Well, not me, brother.
Carlton had to
That's that.
interject. I don't know if you have the chat open on the side window, but the chat was
Oh,
loving that Carlton made an appearance. So we at one point, Randy, we had a
I
game
do.
show where me and Tom were the contestants and Carlton was the host. That's where he was born from, is he hosted a game show. So it's shenanigans.
I was wondering where he came from, but I'm like, okay, I guess they're letting
Hey,
the listeners join in.
you played it off really well. I was dying. I was having a hard time with that.
All
Hey,
right.
I'm going to call out some people here. I see Jason Stormowski on the list. My partner on the one lap the last couple of years, wonderful
Oh,
guy.
yeah.
Boo, 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 boo.
David Best, who I met back in my old hometown of Melbourne, Florida, autocrossing. I remember David way back. And Mark Kruger. No, I'm thinking of Mark Kruzmer. No, that's
We
about all
love
I
you
got for
anyways,
you
Mark
right
Kruger.
now.
Yeah, there's a ton of people in the chat. Thank you everyone for joining us today. And if
Yes.
you're wondering how people are watching a live show, in the description there's a link to the Discord. So make sure you join the Discord and join the community. Randy, we have some questions for you. Besides the Volvo kink that Carlton threw off the rails, what are your thoughts on sour cream? Veggie sour cream, is that a thing?
Veggie sour cream.
Okay.
Yeah, no,
Right, you're a
sour cream is
vegetarian, yeah?
one thing I'll cheat on. But I'm like a health nut eater. I'm not a health nut exerciser, which I ought to be because I wouldn't be this skinny. But I've been vegetarian like 35 years.
Oh no shit, I didn't know that.
And yeah, and I'm alive. What the
Yeah,
hell?
the proof is in the pudding, but the veggie
But
pudding.
sour cream on black bean soup. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. The what we often have this debate on the podcast, and it's we frame it as like talent versus effort, and when it comes to driving a car, is there such thing as talent? What does Randy Pobst think?
I started out autocrossing and then road racing with no schooling. I never went to any class, never had a coach. I just went and learned it all the hard way and didn't learn a lot of stuff. And then in 1989, I needed a job and I got on with Skip Barber Racing School. And I met a guy named Terry Earwood. And Terry is still out there, still like chief stewarding something. He is an amazing person. He's so funny that I cry listening to him. And Terry, I still use some of his jokes, same ones, like a sleazeball, don't be a sleazeball early apexer. It goes on and on. He's a Southern guy. And he would talk about street driving and he would say, yeah, we want to talk about following distance, but in Jacksonville High School back in 1971, we never worried about following distance. All we did was just pass the car in front of us. Anyway, that's Terry. Terry is the probably the most knowledgeable person on driving and racing that I've ever met. And I learned so much from him when I was working there. And he says that you can learn 90% of this. I forget the exact number. You can learn 90% of it. The last 10%, you got to be born with it.
Okay.
And that's my answer.
So you think you can get 90% there, but then the last 10% is just inherent to the human being?
Yep. Like him, O'Gorman over here.
Well, look, guys, on my screen, which is the only one that matters because this is the one that recorded, Randy pointed at me. Let's go.
No, it's funny you say that because we did a whole episode on this. We've talked a lot about it, and DJ kind of convinced me that. So DJ believes that talent does not exist. You can put in effort to overcome talent or any other skill as long as you put in the right effort the right way. I was always told I was talented at driving. I believe that I put in work to become a better driver, but when enough people are telling you like you're just talented at this, like you just start to kind of take that for granted, I guess. But when we talked about it a lot, it was like the amount of effort that you put in without realizing it. For me, for example, it was all video games before I started driving a car. Maybe that's where the what's perceived as talent comes from when it was actually bunch of effort for the first 10 years that I was playing around with car stuff, but with a controller, right?
Didn't feel
Or a
like effort
steering
though.
wheel.
Yeah, it didn't feel like it
And it
though.
didn't feel like effort. So that's where it's I still I flounder. I go back and forth between whether I believe I have a specific skill set of spatial awareness and all sorts of stuff that are natural to my brain when I can't do math, but I can do this, and that's what applies to cars or driving, I should say. But I think, I mean, I definitely used to think exactly what you just said, but DJ is a strong, what's the word? Strong, persuasive. Yeah.
Yeah, I just think that
Very persuasive. He's also very wrong, in my humble opinion. But go ahead. I haven't heard your arguments.
You know, this podcast started off saying that I was beautiful, and then I made one joke, and now it's all downhill. So
You can be beautiful and wrong
I think thank you.
once.
Awesome. So I think there is certain characteristics and aptitudes of like somebody's personality that might allow them to get like past the first initial barriers. So they'll like pick it up very quickly. But if you were like to plot their progress on a graph, somebody that's a slow starter might catch them really quickly afterwards. So when I first started doing this, I was a slow starter. I was freaking awful at it, but I loved it so much that I like threw myself at it, like over just a large amount of time, consistent effort. I think anything is like possible, and I think if you come in with like subconscious programs that were built outside of racing that can be applied to racing, then you'll pick it up faster. So it will look like you're quote unquote talented, but you've had those like skiers or people who've like like tracked motorcycles or even like horseback riders. There's like a bunch of like stuff that like can apply into racing a car or driving a car in a competition, right? Or even competing, right? There's a lot of skills that come into competition. So I think anytime we see somebody that looks like, oh my good, like they're picking it up so fast, they're so talented. Anytime I have a conversation with those people, I'll pick out details where it's like, oh, that makes sense. Like, oh, they had experience doing this, so like that's why they're picking this up so fast, because like they've already built subconscious programs in their brain where like they get to understand this part of like would normally be a hard concept for somebody to get. They pick that up right away because of their previous experience in this. So I'm a firm believer that everything is learned, and I don't think our monkey brains in the slightest like we're born to drive a mechanical automobile. I think it's all learned, and there's certain characteristics that can help you get past certain learning hurdles. But if somebody puts in enough effort, then they can get as good as anybody else. Did I convince you?
Did he
I don't
convince
agree.
you?
Okay.
I do have a question though.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead. What say what you were going to say, and then I have a different question. It's kind
Okay,
of
I was going to say, you're looking at a guy. I've been autocrossing and road racing since I was 19. I'm 66. What is that? 47 years?
Bad at math, I believe.
Yeah, we've already said that we're bad at math, so like we're just gonna believe you on this one.
I think I did a rough calculation of somewhere between 700 and 1,000 races, and I've run all these different pro series against a wide variety of people, all the way to the highest levels of GT. Anyway, I never ran prototypes, but in every series I ran in, I always could identify the people that were special. And I do not believe they learned that. They were born with a combination of characteristics, not, I like what you said, DJ, like a monkey brain is made to drive a car. No, but that combination of characteristics that apply them well to driving a car.
Okay.
And in a competitive environment, and it just makes them special. And I've always felt like there were people like that where, everybody can run races, and some guys win sometimes, but a couple people, they're just special. And no matter how good you think you are, you go run a series, there's probably going to be somebody, at least one, who's giving you a hard time because they're good too. You do have to respect your competitors.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But I believe in that. It's just, there's just that something that makes certain people really special.
I can kind of understand that because there's some people, the way they handle competition, I don't know if that can be taught, right? Like the way they handle the pressure, you can work on it. It's something that is mendable and something that you can improve on. But yeah, I remember I used to compete in Halo tournaments, and there was just certain people when the pressure was on, they would just be way better than they normally were, and that's not a taught thing. That's just something inherent with how the wiring of their brain works, and they would just be on another level for when it mattered. So I can kind of get
Yeah,
behind
or
that.
the other way around.
Yeah, yeah,
People
true,
that
true.
under pressure, they fail. We
Yeah.
and when I used to autocross a lot, I'd see that at the nationals. I'd be autocrossing people that were amazing. Yeah, no,
Tom raises
and
it.
get to
I'd
the
be autocrossing
nationals.
people amazing. Tom raises his hand.
Oh, no, 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 no. That's not what I
I know
meant.
that's not what you meant, but it was funny.
Everybody amazing. Raise your hand.
No. I'll be
There you
amazing. Why
go.
not? Uh, no, you're right. Like because I choked my first like 4 or 5 nationals. I showed up believing I was supposed to win, and then I choked. And it took me a long time to develop that. I was going to ask you, when you started with autocross, I don't know the timeline of getting into road racing, and I don't want to make you go through it if you don't want to. But when you were getting in, do you feel like you were that like the fast learner or the slow burn, and what were the like hurdles? Like we've talked about driving a lot on this podcast, but we also talk about the mental game and that talent and effort stuff. And like, what were the? Do you remember any specific challenges that were like I had to fix that before I really hit my excellence with driving?
My brother has the same genes as I do, but he's built completely different. And he's a guy who gets interested in something, like DJ said, he likes it, and then he works on it, and he learns, and he gets better. Me, if I'm not kind of good at something, I'm probably not
Oh
interested
my
in it.
God, this is Tom O'Gorman.
Yeah,
Did
yeah. Even from my very first autocross run, I was kind of good at it.
Randy, you got to
Mhm.
come
Won
clean
my
if it's
very
true.
first event. I beat the class champion. I was driving my street car, and so I was already kind of good at it. But that
Randy,
wasn't the real thing. But that's kind of a different subject. But I started out autocrossing a lot because I loved it so well. A lot for me. In
Yeah.
fact, my whole life, ever since my first autocross run, I've done every single possible track day I could get to. My whole life, because it just feels so good.
it does.
And so I'd done a lot of autocross. I'd won a couple of national championships. I'd won several pro solo championships, which is a series. And guys come from around the country. It's a high level of competition, even in the 80s.
Yeah.
And I
I
think
would
it's
say even
far
more in the
higher
80s.
now. And when I got to road racing, I knew how to drive. I was a good driver. I knew how to go fast, let's say. I didn't know some other things, like I didn't always know how to fix a slide. I had some glorious hook slides and went flying off the track when I didn't even know what happened. That was Terry Earwood helped me learn all about that. Correct and recover and keep looking where you want to be. And so the challenge for me was to learn how to road race. And I went to an SCCA school, but I believe the SCCA schools may often still have the same problem they had when I went in 1985. They were focused on speed, learning the flags and everything, but speed. How do you go faster? Go faster, go faster. And there's so much more to it. It should be focused on survival first and not crashing into those people that have been doing it for years. And I didn't crash a lot. I couldn't afford to, but I bumped some in. I remember this one time I hit this guy that was really, really good. And I thought it was his fault. And it was totally my fault, but it took me about another 10 years to learn that.
10 years.
Yeah. And
That sounds like
what I
Tom's
wanted to
first
see, what
pro
I want to
weekend.
see in driver schools now, and I know Skip Barber does this, they were doing it in 1989, is education about who has the line or, whatever, when is a good time to pass, what's a good pass, what's sportsmanship. And that's another subject too. But for me, I could drive fast, but there was a whole lot of other stuff I was missing when I started road racing. And I'm glad I didn't have the big crash because I put all my money in my car. If I'd wrecked it once, I would have had to save money for another 2 years to start over.
Yeah. That I think pretty much everyone listening to this will resonate with that. Like
Yeah,
we have found a little niche. Go ahead, DJ. Go ahead.
I have to ask Randy. And Randy, if it's true, you just have to tell us. You can't deny it, okay? If
Uh-oh.
Oh boy.
do you agree? Well, we're just gonna say you were gonna agree. Okay, so are you Tom O'Gorman that found a time machine in the future? If it's true, you have to say it's true. He's thinking.
Well, for one thing, he's a lot cooler than I ever was.
Because your guys' origin story and like, I don't know, I just showed up to autocross and started winning is literally the same. It's like the same thing.
I don't know. But thank God for autocross because it gave me a place to start racing.
I
Yeah.
I
think
never even thought about racing when I was a teenager, but I loved going around corners. I knew that. I knew there was a neighborhood in Melbourne, Florida, where they had all these roads but never built the houses.
Yeah.
And I knew there was a little section that connected and made a little road course. I did all that before I ever autocrossed. But autocross gave me a chance to race against the clock.
yeah.
And the clock makes a big difference
Mhm.
as opposed to just zooming around corners. Now you have your totally impartial judge of how well you're doing.
Yep.
Especially in comparison to other people who are doing it better than you, right? So it's like an
Yeah.
immediate measuring stick,
Yep.
which is important
And
if
in
you want to get
autocross,
better
you
at
get
it.
a time right away.
Yeah.
So it's easier to relate to what you did and what the speed was, right?
Yeah.
What worked and
Yeah.
what didn't work. In road racing, you're out there, you're just going around and around and around, and you're doing the same damn track for years and years. And any monkey can learn how to do that. And then you go to a new track and you're lost, right?
Oh,
And autocross, it's different every time. You got to figure it out right now. You don't have
Yeah.
any time to, you know, go to test days and drive for 3 hours through the same 8 corners.
Tom's
And I
often said
respect that a lot. I still do.
Tom's often said that autocross is still his favorite form of motorsport.
Really? That's
if
because
I
it's
could
your
only
roots.
do yeah, probably. And I feel like it's a thing that I'm good at, and it's a community that I enjoy, and yeah, it's all that stuff added up. What if you could only pick one motorsport for the rest of the time that you can drive? You've done Pikes Peak and Daytona and autocross and all this. What would it be? Because mine's autocross, and DJ's we've discussed is kind of sim racing, but I don't think you'd pick sim racing for the rest of your life, right?
I don't know,
Uh,
man. Well,
maybe.
it depends. Can I race as much as I want in the other stuff, or is it whatever I can afford? Because if I only had to pick one, then racing real stuff, what I can afford, then I'd barely get to race. But I get to race every single day in this thing, so
Fair.
Good point.
What would yours be, Randy?
Pikes Peak.
Really?
But I'd be wanting to do it every day.
He's at the
Yeah,
gates
it's
at the
just
bottom
so
of the hill
hard.
for a ticket at 8 a.m. every day.
yeah, he's like, they're like, hey,
Oh,
Randy,
no.
you like,
2 a.m.
you're
in
like bringing the
practice,
guards.
you got to wake up at 2 a.m. to be ready by 3 a.m. to go drive to the gate by 4 a.m. to drive up the mountain by 5 a.m. to be ready to start practice at 6 a.m.
Wild.
But it's just so hard, Tom, and that's one of the things I like about it. It's the ultimate driving challenge that's not racing another car.
Yeah.
The problem with racing another car is that fool can bump you out of the way. And I've really had enough of that.
You know, I've thought for a long time. So there's kind of two things about you that resonate with me. The first is that when I was coming through autocross and I was starting to like find my way into motorsports and I was realizing this is going to be a long-term thing, uh, people always held you as the autocrosser who made it. You were in our generation, my generation coming through it. It was you and Peter Cunningham mainly, but you were the autocrosser who made it to road racing, and everybody like cheered you on, whether you knew it or not, from even into the 2010s, right? There was that, and then also your perspective on the, for lack of a better term, morality of road racing, the way things should work, who's in the right, who's in the wrong. I don't think I've ever disagreed with you on your perspective when it comes to things like the vortex of danger, or whatever. Vortex of danger,
Yeah, that's what he calls it.
Yeah,
danger. That's
yeah,
it. Okay,
thank you.
and that kind of stuff. Where did Skip Barber teach that too? Because I don't know where I picked it up from. I just don't think it's fair to hit people. Like I might as well just go punch you in the face. You know?
You may have heard recently a guy named Wally Dallenbach just passed away.
Hmm.
Did you hear that report?
Yeah.
Wally Dallenbach was a top IndyCar racer in the 60s and 70s, and then he became a chief steward. And then his son, Wally Dallenbach Jr., was a top, mostly Trans Am driver for many years. And his other son, Paul Dallenbach, entered Volkswagen Cup the same year I did, way back when. And I've recently seen him and run with him at Pikes Peak Hill Climb. Anyway, in the eulogies, one of the famous drivers that Wally Dallenbach used to chief steward over, it might have been Mario Andretti, might have been Rick Mears, kind of old timey guys. He was a chief steward, I guess, in the 80s, maybe the 90s. They quoted him. They said, Wally Dallenbach, one thing he always said in every driver's meeting, and I didn't know this, was he said, I will not tolerate you using your car as a weapon. And I'm like, yes, yes, I never found those words for it. But immediately drivers come into my brain. Some who've made their whole career out of that. Some who are some of the most popular drivers that ever drove. And
Yeah.
that pisses me off. I don't want to talk bad about dead people. I'm not going to name names. But that's wrong. It's not the demolition derby. It's so easy to just, boom, that guy right out of the way and win the race. And I've seen that happen too many times in recent
Yeah,
NASCAR races.
and then you'll see them
There was one
celebrated.
about celebrated
Yeah, that
3 or 4 years ago. God, I can't remember the names very well.
Which
Their
track?
driver named Martin, his first or last name, not Mark Martin, Younger, not young anymore.
Was it Mid Ohio
Anyway,
or Mosport?
no, it was a circle track. I think it was
Oh, okay.
Bristol.
Got it.
I think it was Bristol. I can't remember the name. I think the
Truex.
other
Truex?
guy, I shouldn't even name names. I don't know for sure. But the significance of this race was they're running for the lead, and the leader needs to win this race to get into the chase.
Yeah.
Second place guy is faster and is catching him. And I'm watching this because I heard about it. A lot of times I don't watch Formula One or NASCAR unless I heard about something that happened and I want to go analyze it.
Yeah,
And the second place guy is faster and reels him in and then works him, gets inside him and goes by him clean. But guess what? Unfortunately, there's one more lap. And they go around on the next lap, and the lead guy goes inside because he knows this guy wants it real bad. But he makes one strategic error. He doesn't slow down enough because the guy just boops him straight on the bumper solid, sends him wide, drives under him, wins the race. And that was bad enough, but it was the commentators' comments. And I think I already heard you, Tom, say something along these lines. It was the comments and the reaction, like the celebratory nature. His team, I guess they have to. They're like, yay, we won. I'm going, screw you. You did not, you assholes.
Yeah.
That just pisses me off so much. And I read this columnist said, like, oh, yeah, this guy really wanted it. He really needed it. And he did what he had to do to get it. It was a good move. I will name one name. God bless him. Love you. I even heard Roger Penske, it was his team, say it was a good move. I'm like, Roger, what? No, that's not what this sport should be. It's become that.
because
And that's a theory of mine. Like, don't pay attention to NASCAR and Formula One. They ruin racing for us because guess what they are? Are they races? No, they're a show. It's a money-making operation. And when stuff like that happens, it's good for their income. They get more views. But it's not good for us because everybody we race with watches Max Verstappen come from 10 miles back and hit somebody in the door, and they think, oh, that's the way you race.
Or
Look at the
worse,
Formula One guy.
make sure that the other guy doesn't basically have to avoid the crash. You know, that's the only thing worse than
That's the
taking
worst.
somebody out, is making them avoid the crash, in my opinion.
That's the worst.
Sucks.
That's the definition of an improper pass.
Yeah.
When you make a move that requires the other guy to move, or there's going to be a crash.
Or
That's an improper pass.
or if like I mean, how many times have you been racing against somebody and they're in front of you and they force you to make the decision not to crash them, and they get to stay in front of you because you weren't willing to crash them?
Yes. Oh, many times.
Right. That's always that is terrible to race against.
Yes.
So
Yes. Okay. Story.
okay, go ahead.
I'm running a
Bring it.
street race in Miami 100 years ago, and I catch this guy. We're in little Hondas in a street race, Firestone Firehawk with TC Klein. Thank you, TC Klein, for starting my racing career. And I had him covered. He was doing an okay job. He was kind of wild. And I get up and I'm coming by him. I get next to him and I'm coming by him on one of those short street course straights. And he moves over and he's leaning on me. And he's getting more and more sideways. And I'm like, this guy is going to spin himself out on the front of my car on this straightaway. And for one, they're going to blame me. For two, he could bounce off the wall and wreck me too. Probably will, actually. So like you just said, DJ, I said, not today. And I backed off and he's like this.
Yeah.
Sorry, no good, rotten, etc.
In iRacing, I'll warn them on the mic, hey, I let you live this time, next time I won't, and then the next time I just let them kill themselves on me because there's a reset button. But yeah, in real life you can't really do that.
You can talk to them on iRacing?
Yeah, you can talk all sorts of shit. It's
To
the
the
best
other
part.
cars, other drivers.
Yeah, well, sometimes, most of the time they're muted. Like Tom's always muted when he plays, but they hear me. Maybe
Now
the
you know how
people who
much
choose
I've
to die.
iRaced.
What's that?
Now you know how much I've iRaced.
Yeah. Maybe the people who then immediately choose to die on my front bumper actually have their mic turned off, and that makes more sense. So, oh well.
I got a story about. Let's talk about sim racing, because I'm interested to hear Tom say that he did a lot of sim racing before he even autocrossed, right?
Yeah, a ton.
I was racing for many years before sim racing even existed. And then for many years, when it was so terrible, it was a different sport or game. It was a game.
Yeah.
It wasn't a sport yet. And so I tried it once or twice, and I'm like, this is nothing like driving. Screw this stuff. And many more years go by because, I got a lot of years to go by. I'm at a race a few years ago, and I meet a woman there. She just comes over to say hi. She's racing. We talk a while. She sounds pretty cool. Her name's Laura Vernon, and she says she's starting the race tomorrow. This is a lucky dog race. And so I go out to the fence the next day. I'm like, let's see how this woman's driving. How's she doing out there? She's got a like a BMW 325 with a 2.5 in it, and nothing special. I'm looking, she's third overall, and she's catching the leaders. And I'm like, and I watch a couple of laps. Wow. So it turns out she's got a little car dealership in Asheville, and me and my buddy Jack go up and visit her, and she's got these cool cars for sale, little bitty, rareexoticvehicles.com, by the way. Yeah, but I'm starting to like her more and more and more. Guess what? Motorcycles. I talk about being a car guy. No, I'm really a bike guy. I'm just not crazy enough to race them.
Same.
So I do something that the motorcycle racers say is even more crazy. I ride them on the street. I think they're right. But anyway, I invite Laura to come drive my race car. And to earn it, she's going to have to sell cars for me because I got too many, right? We make a deal. She comes out. Holy crap. She's good. We're not screwing around here. Laura's good. And not just fast, she knows things. Like she doesn't get in trouble in traffic. She can even make the brakes last and not wear out the tires. And just, she knows things. And there was a classic stint. This is in my Volvo, the Moose, which is a fun car. It's not a great car. And I'm out in the rain and it's sliding and you got, whoa, it's bad. Can't really see. Windshield's half fogged up. I get out, she's next driver. Now I've had this car 10 years, right? All right, Laura. I kind of grab her right here. Tough conditions, Laura. Be careful out there. Tough condition. I don't want her to wreck my car. I think she's
Yeah,
gonna
take
wreck
care
it.
of my moose. Yeah.
I think if Randy was yelling at me, like "Don't wreck my car," right as I'm like pulling away from the pit lane, I think I would poop a little bit.
I didn't say don't wreck. I just said tough conditions, Laura, because I almost wrecked about 10 times. She goes out, does great. I watched her in-car video later. Like, holy crap. So I'm talking to her. I don't know her very well yet. A couple years ago. What's your background, Laura? Well, I've been racing about 2 years. 2 years? And I've done quite a bit of sim. I went, sim. She's a really good sim driver. Maybe like you, DJ. She does those 24-hour races that really are 24 hours. You wake up at 3 a.m. and you go get in on the pit stop. And it changed my mind. I realized that sim technology had reached the point where a lot of it does transfer, doesn't it,
Yeah.
Tom? And
Kind of. Okay, so I'm gonna be the middle ground here because DJ is gonna advocate it till he's blue in the face because it is his thing, right? But I came through it pre iRacing. I started with, when I say simulators, like my first one was PlayStation 1, Gran Turismo, Need for Speed, whatever. That got me hooked. And then I kind of started to get into the games that you could play online with each other when you're like 11. I was 11 or 12 years old when online play started to become a little bit more prevalent. And then I got this steering wheel and this chair that my dad helped me build when I was like 14. So I did all of that before I could drive a real car. I believe that if you go through a simulation learning process, or if you go through any learning before you drive a real car, it's going to help you because your brain can take what you learn from the sim and apply it to reality. I think the more you know about reality and you try to get into the simulator, the worse off you're going to have it. So like, if you were to try to get a simulator and sit down right here, I don't think you would have any fun because you know too much. You can't learn to play the video game because the video game is trying to replicate what you know. And now I don't even play it. Like, I don't play this hardly at all anymore. But it taught me everything I know up to the point that I could get into a real car and start learning the things I didn't know the real way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
So then
It's also one of the many reasons I'm a terrible sim driver, right? But I've hardly done it. Of course I'm terrible at it. Done very little.
So
Sure.
I'm under the impression that even if you have a lot of real world experience, if you don't focus on the ways that it's different, but then focus on the ways that it's similar to real world, so like the playing in traffic, how you make speed, maybe the car doesn't drive exactly the way it would in real life, but just like the nuances of how you're making speed, like the largest radius possible, like having good pivots on the cars on entries, stuff like that, right? So like those things you can iron in those muscle memories as long as you focus on the ways that it's similar. If you pay any attention to the ways that it's different, then yeah, you're gonna start having less fun. It's gonna be a little bit annoying. And the thing is like it's getting better. Every 13 weeks, a new season comes out in iRacing, and every 13 weeks it gets a little bit better. So every 13 weeks it's a little bit better than it just was, and it just continues to get better. And I think if you focus on the ways it's similar, you can build like a bridge in between your sim driving and your real driving. And once that bridge is like fully constructed, then the things you learn in the real world can apply to sim, and the things that you learn in sim can apply to the real world. So let me know if you want to build that bridge, Randy.
I've actually had fun a couple of times. There's a place in Asheville called The Track that has all the sims set up and you can go race. And I ran there with Laura and a couple other people. And it was like you said, DJ, we wore headphones and a mic and we could talk to the person.
Yep.
And that's for me, that's crazy. I've never been able to talk to the guy in the other car next to me. And so I got a kick out of that. But we went to Watkins Glen, and Laura had never been there, and we go out to race, and it looks really good. I mean, it looks like Watkins Glen, and we're in a crazy car. I don't know how the guy chose a Fiat 128. They made them in like 1971, and I had one in college.
Nice.
But anyway, that was our race car. It was a Fiat 128, and we start racing. I know the track, and it's helping me a lot. Laura reels me in and passes me. I have nothing for her. Pissed me off.
Yeah.
And you're like, this is nothing like real life, and you never touched it again.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Okay, so we have a couple other listener questions that are super good. I want to get to them. Taylor Wargo asked, "What is the first moment you felt like you made it?"
I haven't been there yet.
Haven't made it
For
yet.
real.
What are you talking about?
Do you honestly feel like
No.
that?
Not being on the Lizard Brains podcast, even nothing.
Come on, I thought this would be
well, I hadn't considered that.
it.
That's a pretty big step.
We got all 30 people
you know
listening
what? I'll
right
tell
now.
you about a couple of seminal signposts in my career. One was the first time I won a Solo 2 national championship. In my early days, my college days, pretty much, that was my number one goal. And achieving it was really big for me. And then another one I remember was when we won the championship in 1996 with TC Klein in that car I was pointing out. We're not on TV, are we? That one back here?
No, we are.
TV,
Yeah.
whatever. Video. Anyway, that was 96. I was born in 57. So I was 39. I was about to turn 40. And I remember thinking that year, it was kind of a miracle that we won. We beat the factory Dodge team with 4 guys and a Honda that TC bought over in Europe and the Newspeed people. And I didn't think that would ever happen again. It was a miracle. And I go, well, here I am. I'm almost 40. We miraculously won this championship by skin of our teeth. And I thought, this could be the peak of my career. It might be like all downhill from here, And the fact is, by 98, I didn't have a ride. I was driving a club car with a friend of mine from Miami in some sort of club race. That was the only ride I had at the time. And then it was after that where I got in with Alex Job Racing and GT Porsches. And then I got a Porsche factory contract, and then Audi, and then Mazda, and then Volvo. That all happened after I was 40. And so there was much more to come to it. But I don't ever feel like I made it.
There was never a
There would be
moment
a
of
definition
reflection.
of that. It might be if you don't. I put it in terms of money. Like I have so much money, I don't need to worry about making any more. Is that a
Yeah.
bad definition? We're talking
No, I
about a
hear that.
racing career.
I
It's yeah.
I feel like, well, obviously that made it in quotations is going to be, it's going to be different for everyone, right? So like for me, it would feel like, and I don't know if I would even notice this, this scenario or this goalpost was even crossed. But if it felt like I was, I could race as much as I wanted to. but I don't know. Is that even feasible? Because I think I would want to race every weekend.
Good for you.
Well, that's
I do.
You want to race
I
every
want
weekend,
to.
right?
yeah, I think
Yeah.
we all want to, yeah. Um, I relate to it being in a way that relates to setting your actual life up to be comfortable, because that's, I mean, I've only been doing this for 10 or 11 years on my own as like a unemployed, self-employed, whatever you want to call it, and it's already hard.
Yeah.
So, like Mitch
Yeah.
Marhefka asked, also, has it ever gotten old, either the driving or the hustle of the racing career and driving, like trying to year by year it? Has it ever gotten old?
I I don't like asking people for stuff. And if you're going to be a pro driver, you need to call teams and look for rides. And it's good. But I always hated that. It's even though I'm a people person, I love to talk to people. And one year, it was around 1988, I had been running my own car team. I even had a little deal from Toyota in 87 and 88 with some help from Autocross Magazine, which is now Grassroots Motorsports.
Oh, I didn't know
They
that.
helped me get hooked up with Toyota, Tim Suttard, and I think even David Wallens and JG Pasterjack were there back then. I know
They're awesome.
both those guys go way back with Tim Suttard. Anyway, I had this little deal, but by the end of 88, I was out of money. I had run these cars in an unbelievably small amount of money, putting a whole member team in one room in the hotel, sleeping in the truck to and from, the
Yep.
whole 9 yards.
Yep.
My sister was one of my main crew people, Judy. Thank you, Judy. And she was a travel agent, so she could get free tickets to come to the races and help. God bless her. My wife, ex-wife, Linda, God bless her. She used to drive overnight with me. She would work. We'd get in the truck, drive overnight to the race. Does this sound familiar to anybody? Run the race, drive overnight, maybe over 2 nights if we were that far away, and arrive home, take a shower, and go to work. And so I was out of money. It was in 1989. I didn't have a ride. I'd had my own car for the first couple years. That's what something P.D. Cunningham has always done really right. He ran his own team. So he always had his own car and he's a good businessman. I'm
Yeah.
not. I'm not a good businessman. So I was out of money, had no rides. So I started calling people. And it was actually much more pleasant than I thought it would be. They knew where I was calling. I would just say, hi, Fred. How are you? Oh, doing good. Well, what are you up to this year, Fred? Oh, we're running 2 cars in the blah blah series, and we're kind of full up. We don't need anybody, but I appreciate you calling. They always appreciate you calling, and that was tough, but
Yeah.
a couple times it kind of worked. But most of my career, I've just been dumb luck. I've just been sitting there, and the phone rings. I joke that's my marketing campaign is to sit at home and stare at the phone.
Seems effective.
Oh, I've been so lucky a couple times. Let me tell you the way I got my first big ride with Alex Job. I'd been in the Firestone Firehawk series. I ran virtually every single race there was of that series. It was endurance racing for really close to street cars. You'd bolt the roll cage in. They wouldn't let you change the brakes. They wouldn't even let you put brake ducts on it. Bad choice. That's a mistake. But they wanted them to look exactly like street cars. And I'd never been in the next level. GT cars, real prepared race cars. And I was at Watkins Glen because I had a sniff of getting into a whatever they called Firehawk at the time. It might have been the Motorola Cup, I think, in a Mustang with a guy named Chuck Snipes. And I'm walking through the garage looking at the cool race cars of the GT series, the upper series. And somebody goes, "Psst, hey, "Hey, Randy." And I look over, and it's a couple of crew guys from the Alex Job racing team. Well, that team was located in Florida, kind of Orlando area. So they knew me. They'd seen me around for years running autocrosses and starting to road race. And they said, "We might need a guy. Stay around." I'm like, wow, because these were first class cars. And they had a guy that was just not getting it done. And they let me drive the car. And I didn't know much about racing slicks or anything, but I knew how to drive. And let's see, when was that? That was in the late 90s. So I'd already worked for Skip Barber for a while, so I knew a lot more how to drive than I did in the 80s. Anyway, they let me practice in it. I did well. Qualified, I got the pole. We won the race. And that was the start of my GT career. Thank you, Alex Job. And that all came, right by accident. I'm just walking through the garage and
Yeah.
somebody knew me because they'd seen me around Central Florida for 10 years.
It
And
couldn't have
so,
been that.
but that's not the way to do it.
It couldn't have
The way
been
to
that
do it
much
is to
accident though.
call.
It couldn't have been that much by
Sorry?
accident though, because like you were at the event, right? You were there. You were putting in the work elsewhere, right? They noticed, right? So it's not like you were just walking through and they're like, "Hey, you with the driver's suit, get in here."
Random guy.
Yeah. so, I mean, it
That's true.
seemed happenstance, right? But like you were putting in the work. You were, people had good things to say about you, right? Like you had a good reputation. You were fast, right? All these things like add up. And when it's like, "Hey, we need somebody that can drive this. What about Randy?" And then they see you and they're like, "Boom, let's get him in there." Right? That's probably
Yeah, I
actually
guess
what
you're
happened.
right.
Yeah.
But the guys who always seem to have a ride, they're on the phone. And
Yeah.
they come down during the race, say hi to the team owner, and network. You got to kind of know people. It is really, really who you know.
Yeah.
And then once you get in the car, you've got to be able to perform, make it happen. But you need to be on the phone, and stuff will happen.
Yeah, I didn't realize that was a thing really either. I'm very similar where everything just snowballed very organically and I'm super lucky for it. But after I got dropped during COVID because of budget reasons. So then I was like, I had this
Yes.
10-year path of up towards pro racing and I was testing a GT3 car and stuff. And then all of a sudden it was just gone, done.
Oh,
And I went, I don't know what to do now because the only people I had as resources were Honda. And when that was gone, I didn't know that you could just call team people or, crew people, team owners or whatever back when I started in pro racing to even go meet them so that I had their phone number to call them when I got dropped. There was that whole like, oh, damn, I really messed that up. I should have been doing all
good
that other
point.
stuff. But then I asked somebody a couple years later, it's like, is that really a thing? People like pro drivers are calling team owners? They're like, yeah. What? I didn't know that. Damn, I wish I would have been doing that. So now I'm resetting every time I go to like I just did an IMSA race this past weekend and I treated it just a little bit differently than when I did before because I understand the scope even a little bit better.
Like you
But
understand the game that you have to play a little bit better than you did the first time
do you get
around.
the impression? Yeah, do you get the impression that it still is opportunities given the way it sounds like you were given opportunities with racing now?
Oh
Or do
yes,
you get the impression it's more money driven?
it's both.
Both?
If a team gets money, then they want to get the best drivers they can.
Yeah.
And every situation is different. It's always been money driven. It really has, but it does seem to be more so. I just barely have my fingers in it now. But if you bring a sponsor, obviously it's a huge advantage.
Yeah.
And but there are still, I believe, opportunities. Like
Sure.
you, Tom, you should be driving for Team Corvette.
What
Born in Dayton,
what's
Ohio.
his in?
Did you make the call?
Man,
You said did you call the guys at Pratt and Miller like you said you were going to
no,
on
I
one lap?
threatened to, but I didn't.
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Uh,
Because you should
uh,
be there. You'd be perfect.
well, I'm only 32, so your story gives me massive amount of hope that I'm not washed up yet.
Yeah, Randy, I'm not sure if you saw the chat, but there's a bunch of people that like, oh, good, I'm not 40 yet. I still have a chance. So you just like inspired like 30 people
ton of
being like,
people,
I
yeah.
still have a chance.
Yeah. DJ, were there any other
Yes.
questions you wanted to hit?
Let me see.
I've got one
Oh, wait
other
a
one.
here. How about my buddy here? I see
Who's your
my
buddy?
buddy Jason asked over the years, who did you like racing against on the track, and who did you not care to race against?
Ooh,
I don't
I
know
like
about
that
the
question.
negative side. I don't think I want to go into that. But there were definitely drivers
That you'd
that
like to
used
race?
their cars as weapons,
Oh,
some of whom did it regularly, and you probably can think of some people right away. But who did I like racing against? Andy Pilgrim. Now these are guys from my generation, of course. Always had a lot of respect for Johnny O'Connell. Let's see, probably a zillion others.
I'm trying to think. I
Andrew
was just
Carbonell, not as well known.
yeah.
The thing is, that there was a woman driver named Janet Guthrie. You guys ever heard of Janet Guthrie?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm-
DJ, maybe not. Janet Guthrie.
I'm bad at knowing who anybody is, so count me out on this one.
She was the first woman to run at the Indy 500 when the Indy 500 was the biggest damn race on earth. And this is in the 70s. And guess what? Women were not allowed in the paddock. And so she had some fights just getting in the paddock. They're like, no, I'm a driver. No, you girls aren't allowed in here. Anyway, she's fantastic, wonderful woman. And in her book, she wrote about racing, and she talked about how sometimes you're racing somebody and you get the feeling, you can tell that they're trying not to hit you. You're neck and neck, but they leave that little car width in an inch, right? And that's the thing that just makes you feel so good after a race.
That is a good
I'm
good
sure
feeling,
races
Randy.
come to mind that were like that for you. And it depresses me how few races like that appear to be like that. I don't watch that much racing. I'm afraid I have to admit. I want to drive races. I don't want to watch races unless it's one of my good buddies. But what happens is, right? How many times have we seen this? Comes down near the end of the race. Two cars are neck and neck. And damn it, they can't get to the finish line. Somebody hits somebody because they both want to win and they're both going to push it too far and they crash. And that always, I find it depressing and disappointing. I'm like, the thing is, as much as we want to win, for racing to be a sport, one has to accept that they might not win. And what happens is when somebody wants to win so bad, they don't accept that and they push it into situations where they crash. And it pisses me off also to see the racers at the level of Formula One or NASCAR or IMSA that they can't pull that off. It's neck and neck. It's a beautiful race. Then somebody starts leaning on somebody hits a little harder, and then somebody crashes. And that's not how it's supposed to be.
And as a fan, you're robbed of the show.
Yeah.
To your point of it being it's like I can even remember there was one I started commentating the runoffs a couple years after you had been doing it. And there were one or two races the first year I was doing it that the race was getting so good. And then one of the two of them either spun or crashed, whatever it was. It might not have even been the same scenario, but I was like, we just got robbed of that show. Like that was going to be so good and we just got robbed of it. Because I want to watch good racing if I can't be in the good racing.
Yeah, like
a couple times.
Oh, sorry. The best racing highlights is not the one where it ends with like a crash or whatever. It's where it's like they're side by side, they're leaving each other room. It's you can see like the chess match happening, right? Those are the most entertaining things to watch. What were you gonna say, Tom?
By the way, pertains to this week. If you guys need to have some entertainment, if you're listening to this podcast, go watch the FIA TCR race from Mid Ohio.
Ooh, yeah, dude, it was
Race
so
2.
good.
It's on the FIA YouTube channel, or just look up FIA TCR Mid Ohio. Race 2. It's dirtier than I want it to be, but nobody actually crashes. Oh my god, it is one of the coolest races I've seen in a long time, and it's all the European pros. They brought them in as like a feature race for the IMSA weekend, so it's the proper like FIA like world touring cars basically. It's so cool.
The Europeans are on another level. Like we're just like we're like playing patty cake. Like all those people are freaking crazy. They're so good.
To your point about not crashing each other, we were watching the race literally like these. If this was American drivers, they all would have crashed because they were leaning on each other. You could tell the spidey senses of where exactly they could get away with it without crashing themselves or the other car for laps and laps and laps on end with 7 cars in a row. I mean, it was. Anyway, sorry, I cut you off, DJ.
Nope. I mean, Tom, when you brought that and I watched that, that's why I've talked about it on the podcast before. Is I love like waking up early during the weekend and getting some iRacing in because that's when all the Europeans are on because they all race like that. It's also cutthroat and they expect you to be inch perfect, and if you're not, that's when you're gonna crash. But if you're inch perfect, it's like so close and just like so cutthroat, and it's literally the best racing. I love it.
Yeah. It was
That's
entertaining.
what they meant
Go ahead.
when they said rubbin's racing.
Yeah.
Rubbin is when you touch a little bit. It's not when you spin the guy out or just hit him right on the back bumper and knock him wide. Like, you're in the middle of a boxing match, you pull out a gun and shoot him in the chest. Boom. At all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nice boxing match.
All right, so
Yes.
That's cool. Yeah, I wrote that down. I'm gonna look that up, Tom.
It's also in the chat. Jake Martin. And Tom. Oh, literally both of you linked the same thing, but sorry, Jake Martin. Tom beat you. So, ooh. All right. So we have a question from Lou God here in the chat. What is your favorite car and why is it a 77 Volkswagen Rabbit?
In my early career, I graduated from college and I made a commitment to win the Pro Solo Series and to do whatever it takes within my incredibly tiny budget to win Pro Solo. And I was one of the only people in the country that drove cross country to run the races on the other side. And that was a huge advantage because they were counting all of them, as I recall. So by crossing country, greatly improved my chances of winning the championship. And Pro Solo only has so many classes. That's how I ended up with a Rabbit. The Rabbit was the only car I could afford that could win a class.
Nice.
And actually, at the time, it was a great car. In the 70s, everything was so pitifully slow. There was one, I remember in Road and Track magazine back in the day, used to list all the 0 to 60s in the front page from their road tests. And if I got this right, there was one where the second fastest time was a Volkswagen Scirocco with a 1500cc engine. It did like 10.2. I think the only car that beat it was a 911, which is only probably like a 9.1.
Yeah.
Because they were light. They were light and they ran good. They were one of the first fuel injected cars. And so they made a good autocross car. They weighed under 2,000 pounds if you took the spare tire out. Of course, we always did. That's how I ended up with a Rabbit back then.
Is that your
And then you
favorite
drove
car?
one,
Actually,
like-
that's not true. No, that's not true. Here's
Uh-oh.
the real reason.
The
It's
real
similar,
story.
but I wanted to road race so bad. I'd been autocrossing a few years. I wanted to road race. And that's what led me to a VW because they didn't have like the IT classes or the Lemons race. You couldn't race a cheap car. You had to have a real race car. If you wanted to race, you had to go SCCA or Circle Track. And I just wasn't interested in Circle Track. I wanted to shift and turn right and left and go over hills. And that's what I liked. And so it's similar though, but the only car that I could afford that could win a racing class was a VW Rabbit. That's why I bought my first Rabbit. It was a 78, had the little short stroke motor, and only car guys would know that, old ones. But that's how I ended up with a VW. And it turned
Hell
out just
yeah.
by accident, it was a really good autocross car. What would
Huh.
Carlton think of that?
I love all sorts of cars. Just the more it's a car, the better. I say.
You mean the more valves, the better, right?
Uh, yeah, that's totally something Carlton would think. um, is that your favorite car? Is a Volkswagen?
Oh, favorite car is a tough one. Wait a minute, wait a minute. I have a favorite car right now. That's my Flying Moose Volvo. That one.
It's
That's my
Nice.
favorite car. Come
It's-
on, we've been racing this for 10 years.
it's not a 6th
There's
gen
this wonderful
Camaro.
guy. What? My who?
It's not a 6th gen Camaro.
Oh, well, no, I like them too. I like them too. But I've had that Volvo a lot of years, and I keep looking for the holy grail for a guy like me. Is somebody? It's an endurance race, so I have to have other drivers. It's expensive because it's a long race. You got to do a lot of work on the car, even at the low level like this. And phone rings out of nowhere. It's a guy named Sam Collier. He likes old Volvos. He's not old. He's in his, I don't know, mid to late 30s. That's old to some of you guys, and he says, look, I'll put a fuel injection system, micro squirt on your Volvo, and if you let me drive it with you. Well, that blossomed into he's building the car, and I pay for the parts, but he does the work. And guess what? He's a good driver too, and he's a great guy to hang around. The Holy Grail. So he's part of the reason the Volvo is still running. It's still competitive. It still has a Volvo engine and a Volvo transmission. I'm proud of that too. If we ever LS swap it, it's going to feel like a failure. But boy,
Like
is
a
it going to be
cop-out.
easier.
Yeah.
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 But then you can set fastest lap times in Lemons races anytime you want. There's a trade-off.
Yeah.
Does anybody
No.
in the audience have anything else for Randy, or do you have anything, Tom?
There's a bunch of other little ones, but I can't find one that's like the one to end on. We're at about an hour and a half right now, right?
Yeah.
Are we?
Let me someone asked a pretty good like big thought driver question, and that's what we're kind of talking about here, right? So Duckies, I don't know who this is, but Duckies asked, what's the hardest thing to grasp at each stage of getting faster? Whether you're beginner, intermediate, advanced, and pro. What's the hardest thing to grasp?
I like that question.
Can you think of anything off the top of your head that's like a big thought driver question?
That's definitely a driver question, but I will tell you that I drive on a very high level, and I have for a long time. And um, like I said, in every series, there seem to be a couple of fools that are also pretty darn good, unfortunately. But guess what? Fundamentals. I'm still dealing with the same fundamentals. The problem with me as a coach is I've been doing it so long that a lot of this stuff is totally automatic. And I can't relate to somebody doing it for the first time as well as maybe I could have if I did more instructing. But it still comes down to fundamentals. And one of the toughest things that makes people crash their whole career is your inborn human instinct to look at what you're afraid of. And so that's something that I personally have had to deal with. The best drivers are often born with just a natural tendency to keep their eyes on the road no matter where the car's going. This is a challenge. You get in trouble, the car snaps sideways, you look over there, and that makes you do all the wrong things because you go where you look. And even at the highest levels of driving, all that stuff is still the stuff that I deal with weight management, you putting weight on the front, take your time, those basic driving school lessons. And I've known some pretty good drivers who didn't completely understand it. I was one of them. Am one of them.
I
That's, I guess, why I never feel like I really made it. I'm just always looking for more. What's next?
I think
More,
I think
more,
that's a
more.
good race car driver mentality to have, is just always looking for more. Randy, the first time I ever met and saw you, I think was 2017 at Solo Nationals, and you were driving an FSP uh, uh, Volkswagen Rabbit, I believe.
VW Rabbit,
Yep,
buddy.
yep. The
77
roots.
Rabbit.
Yep. I think that's where that question came
Wasn't
from, by the
mine.
way. Yeah. Um,
Yes.
so, and I remember the thing that I saw, and it's like still the thing that I'm like trying, and it like set me in the right direction with my own driving. I watched one of your runs, and from the moment you turned in all the way to exit, it wasn't that the car was at the limit. It was all four tires were at the limit from the moment you twisted the wheel all the way to the exit. So that's like something where it's like, I don't know why. It was very early in my driving, but that was like a light bulb that went off above my head where I went, oh, that's what the goal for every single twist of the wheel should be, is where not just the outside front tires at the limit of adhesion, because that's easy, right? It should be all four tires in the car are at the limit of adhesion as soon as possible. And I ride that line all the way to the exit. That's going to be the fastest possible corner. And for some reason, it took me watching you do it to have that light bulb click off to go like, that's what I should be aiming at. So to answer Ducky's question, I think that's the hardest part of the journey is, and it's still, I think it's something I'll chase till the end of time, is just having the consistency to nail that every time from turn in to exit, all four tires just perfectly happy at the right slip angle. That I think when I saw you do that, it was like it literally sent me in the right direction with my driving, because it was the thing that I like started focusing on.
Well, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And
Thanks, Randy.
you had enough knowledge to recognize that. That's very insightful. And I feel good that maybe I got to be accidentally a part of that process.
Yep. Thank you. I mean, I think like through all of our driving journeys, we've seen people, we've sat right seat as they drive our car or their own car, or we watch them race or something, where along the way, and it's still happening. I'm sure it's still happening for you, but you like learn stuff from people all the time, and you saying that you're constantly hungry for more is what made me think of that. So yeah, I think that's the right race car driver mentality, is just be hungry, be a sponge. You're always going to be able to grab new information, and that information hopefully will help you and give you an advantage at some point during your journey. Tom, do you have any closing
Yes,
thoughts?
sir.
Not really. Randy, what are you up to this weekend? Another racetrack somewhere?
I am. I'm going to go out to Sonoma for a lucky dog race.
Ooh, that sounds fun.
Fun.
And it is fun. I love those races for many reasons. One of the primary reasons is the woman that runs it, Kathy Fuss, has an unbelievably great attitude. And so it's an enjoyable experience in many ways. But what's good about these budget endurance racing series is they're really long. So people let me drive their cars. And in that series, I just go out there. I'm officially a brand ambassador for Lucky Dog Racing League. And I sit down with Kathy and she says, get out there and talk to people.
And mingle.
Like, perfect job for me. I don't have any duties. I don't have any responsibilities. Mingle. And every so often somebody says they'll let me drive their car. And I love it. Now, also because at this level of racing, like I said earlier about lemons, is the creativity in what these people build is amazing. Because at the pro levels, it's also tightly structured. You buy your race car from a manufacturer now in the GT ranks, and you're not allowed to change very much at all. The wing angles, maybe the shocks, I guess, but you're not building the car. These guys, they get a Miata, and you never know what engine might be under the hood of that thing.
Yeah.
And
True.
I love that creativity. They make it work. Home engineering, I really enjoy that, and I enjoy the chance to get into some of the cars. And I've been watching that series get better and better. The drivers are getting better and better. But they range from people who have never raced before to Tom O'Gorman. And
You're at the
that
top,
makes for
Tom.
interesting races. Um, but I don't know. We're trying to wrap up, so I probably shouldn't launch into a whole story.
I
Go
mean,
for it.
There's a
if you
lot
want to
going
launch into a
on.
story, you can.
Okay, how about things that piss off Randy?
Oh, geez, this is
Oh,
how
we're
we're
in.
ending.
Let's go.
Blocking. The old rule where you get one move. And even worse, you're in a slow car, you're a new guy, and you're blocking. That pisses me off. And I had this experience at a race. This guy, I need to go meet him, but he probably hates me. But there was a car running that was really good. It was fast. And I was in a car that was fast. And but they had one guy who probably brought a lot of money that was incredibly slow. He obviously had not done this much. I saw him come out of the pits and spin in the third corner, and he's 10 seconds off the pace, literally. Down towards the end of the race, they're leading in spite of that guy. Good team, fast car, but they got the money guy. And I'm catching him. We're a couple laps down, but there's, another hour and a half to go. I guess they must have told him, like, the 13 car's coming, don't let him by or make it hard or whatever that asshole Red Bull guy said to Checo to block Hamilton in that race a couple of years ago. God, that pisses me off. Anyway, I come roaring down on this guy. He's 10 or 15 seconds a lap slower than I am. People in road racing, that's an eternity.
It really is.
I come roaring down, and he sees me and pulls over to take the inside of the corner to block me. I'm like, really? Okay. So I go through the corner and I come 10 miles an hour under my normal speed because that's how slow the poor guy is. And I want him to have a good time, and Kathy wants everybody out there. We come out the other side though, and I can't resist. I'm like mirror to mirror with him coming off the corner. Like, I'm not happy with what you just did, dude. And I guess he lost his temper because wham, he
Wait,
hits
actually?
me a good one. Yeah.
No way.
He turned into you?
I'm like, whoa. And then I worry, oh crap. I mean, I lost my temper. I was driving right next to him. I didn't touch him, but boy, it was close. And I thought, oh God, we could have just lost a tire, cut a tire or broke a wheel.
Yeah.
And those kind of bumps usually feel a lot worse than they really are. Not always, but anyway, I thought, oh, I also immediately looked at the corner worker, right? Because in Lemons, if you have any contact, Lucky Dog too, you're supposed to come in. But I'm like, but I don't want to come in because we're trying to catch the leader.
Yeah, that's
Right.
it's anti to your goals.
Which is that guy. Anyway, I look at the corner worker and he's looking the other way.
Yeah.
I'm like,
you're like, nice.
I think we're going to be all right. So I just keep going. Guess what? He gets the flat tire and comes in one of these very rare moments where the karma went the right way.
Instant karma,
Right,
the
right,
best
yeah.
kind. Yeah, yeah.
But I'm sure he hates me. I should have gone over to find the guy and talk to him and let him yell at me or whatever he wanted to do. But he was in his first damn race ever, I'm sure. And you got to learn. You don't mess with people.
I have a feeling normally people with that kind of attitude, they don't last very long in the sport. So he's probably on to his next hobby, like competitive knitting or something.
God, I hope so.
Unless he's in this chat, then Hi.
He's out there. I run into him every so often. That's one thing about racing is, it's an emotional sport and risky, and every so often you're going to get mad and you're going to make somebody mad. That's part of it.
Yeah. I'm definitely gonna hit you up for some sort of or just right now, let me know if there's ever a way to go do a lucky dog race, because they're on the East Coast now too, right? It was always West Coast to
Yes,
start with.
They had one at NCM not too
yes.
long ago.
I want to do one someday. I haven't done that series yet.
No, that wouldn't have been Lucky Dog. NCM was one of the other ones
Oh, I thought
because I
Yeah.
do all the East Coast races with my own car
Right.
because I want to support the series and because I love it. It's great. We got Laura, that woman sim racer I told you about, and we got Sam, the amazing Volvo mechanic, and we're good.
what was Laura's
But
last
Tom,
name?
where do you live?
Ohio.
Oh, what? You're still in
Columbus.
Ohio?
Columbus, Ohio.
Oh,
Yep.
that's TC Klein territory,
Yeah, I've
or
never met
used to
him, but
be.
I know a bunch of people who have had their cars from him, worked on or
Yeah,
built.
yeah, man. He made my race career. Thanks, TC. And we won a lot of races. Uh, but I think the best thing you can do is just go to a race like that, a Lucky Dog, or
Yeah.
like you said, Champ Car. WRL is a little tougher because it's like mini IMSA.
Yep.
Then they're more scheduled. But I'll bet you if you just went there and you walk around the paddock, you're going to run into people that you know or that know you. And somebody's going to say, "Hey, Tom, you want to drive our car?" It's a Geo Metro with a Suzuki Hayabusa engine or something
Hell
in the
yeah.
back.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
you'll
Oh,
be like,
now that sounds fun.
okay,
Yep.
yeah, you never
Oh, that's
know.
awesome.
But that's really kind of the best way. It's who you know.
Totally.
Just kind of be there
Yep.
and then don't wreck
Uh,
it.
you're right. Yeah.
That
Well, you
goes.
won't.
That's implied.
I'll do my best not to anyway. DJ, what are you doing this weekend?
I think I'm gonna drive all the way to Cincinnati for an autocross event. It's like 3.5 hours away, but it's like the only thing I found. There's an autocross event 5 minutes from my house, but it's a Drive Auto X event. It's $150, so not doing that one.
Holy cow.
Wow.
Well, I don't know if they have prizes, but you don't have to work those. That's probably why it's
It's
so
2
expensive.
days and you don't have to work, so it's like 75 each day. You don't have to work. I'd rather just drive 3.5 hours. So it also doesn't look like a lot of people sign up for those. So it's like, what am I going to compete against 20 people or drive down to Cincinnati and compete against like 150 people? That sounds more fun.
Yeah.
DJ, one of the great memories I have of my early career was getting up at 5 a.m. to drive 3 hours to an autocross,
Yep.
or leaving at 5 a.m. so you can walk the course or whatever.
Yeah,
That was a great feeling.
I normally show up right as registration's closing and they're closing the course, and then I quickly walk one walk. That's normally what I do at locals. So it's
Normally
a
I'm with
bad
ya.
habit. Yeah.
Normally I'm with you, but I got a plan because I also was thinking of going to that event. My parents are out of town and their house is 2 minutes from that site. So why don't we just go crash at my parents' house the night before?
Okay. Is that what we're doing, Tom?
I'm down. I have to text them, make sure they're still out of town then. But
Okay.
even if they're there, they're
Digging
gonna be
it.
like, yeah,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
one.
Okay. Well, all right. We will plan on going to the event, and where we sleep is to be determined.
Randy, if it wasn't for your other event, you could come with us. We don't
Yeah,
drive together.
it's a real
I
bummer
would.
that. Yeah, you could drive Tom's BRZ. Hey, you want me to bring your tires,
Yeah.
Oh,
Tom?
that's a great car.
It
Yes,
is.
bring my
It's,
tires.
it's a
gen or
really
Yeah,
good
second
car.
great
gen?
car. Second gen.
Second
I love it.
gen.
Yep.
That's
So
a favorite car.
all right, Randy. Thank you. We're so appreciative of you being on the podcast. Literally a living legend. We're so grateful for that. Yeah. Tom, do you want to close out the show, or should we coach
Well,
Randy on it?
I think we should let him try it. But Randy, do you have anything to plug? Anything where to follow you? Anything like that? That's what podcast guests gets to do, right? We don't have
Oh,
That is
guests
yeah,
very
true.
often.
yeah. I have a very sleepy YouTube channel, and I have an Instagram that's doing okay, and Facebook, and it's all Randy Pobst. So it's great to have a name that nobody else has. That's relatively short, hard to spell. probably one of the hardest to spell short names that you'll ever see.
Popes.
I can't believe how
But
many
yeah,
people I get.
especially Instagram these
Yeah.
days. I do a lot of that. Thank you.
Yep, yep. Randy, so the outro, all right, when I point at you or just point at
Yeah.
the camera, you're gonna say, love your hair, hope you win. You think that will work? Love your hair, hope you win.
Sure.
Okay. Tom, you think this is gonna go okay?
I think so. He's going to do better than I do.
Okay, so when I point, you just gotta say it. You ready? Is it in the chamber? All right. Well, thank you for joining us, everyone. And Randy,
Love your hair. I think you're going to win.
thanks, Randy.
That was fun. Thanks, you guys.